How's it going in Virginia, Alexis?
We're doing pretty well. We've had a crazy spring, but we're adapting.
Can I unmute you? Because
Okay, I think it's working. Oh, I think it's confused. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Cool. We're trying to use two computers acting really slow, so that's the main issue. But great, it's nice to have you both on. It's really yeah, but we can see them here. Oh, but they can't see us very well. No.
Well, the audio is a bit choppy. You're cutting in and out some.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's just having a hard time. What we might do here is we'll just have to do all of it, I guess. Here. Okay, all of these technology things we're trying to learn. Okay, great. I think we're gonna start at least our conversation. We're still waiting on Chris. We haven't heard back from Brandy, so we're not sure if she'll be able to be on. Our experience with her in technology is it's not the easiest to get her on. So, but it's nice to see Rains on the bike. Who else on? Cool. Very good. Welcome. Hyde? Welcome. So how is it going, Alexis?
It's going well. How are you?
It's good. We're actually in our where we were working at the co-op.
At the co-op, yeah.
So we're using what they call the yellow room. And it's the best place with Wi-Fi in our area since we're not able to sit in coffee shops and not at our house. So
yeah.
But we're actually all packed up. Our car's all packed up, and we're ready to go south. We're going back to Georgia.
Oh, really?
You saw us on our way here.
Yeah, travelers.
Where in Georgia are you going?
At like near Atlanta area where my parents live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're gonna stay there for a bit until things seem to cool down a little bit more. Have you still been having people on your farm?
No, not bringing in outsiders. I mean, we've been producing some video content, posting
See,
things.
Jack. That's great. Welcome, Jack.
Hey, hello. Was my thing turned on?
Yes, it is turned on. We
All
don't see
right.
your.
Well, oh, where's my camera on this? Uh-oh. I'm looking for my camera. I don't see it. Well, I'll keep looking. Continue with what you're doing. I'll find it sooner or later, I think. Oh, here we go.
I'll pop back in for a moment. To
I
say
got shorter hair.
It's hard to hear you, Rain. The wind's out your voice.
I'll stay mostly muted to say that, but if your travels to Atlanta take you through the Boston area or Rhode Island, give me a holler. We might have a reference.
Oh yeah, thank you. That's a nice offer. We'll probably be heading down. We're going north to Lilia's community first for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll be going there afterward.
All right, it might miss us. We leave June 9th. Head back home for then.
Oh, June 9th. Oh yeah, we'll be going down about that time actually, or a little bit before that. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, thanks for the
Thanks.
offer.
That's great.
I'm trying to figure out
What do you want?
to show when. I don't know. Oh, Jack, you're on. That's great. Welcome.
Hey,
All right.
So I guess we'll start since we're almost at the 10 here. I also messaged Chris to see if he's able to get on. So I might also be dealing with some technical stuff, but
Can't hear.
Can I ask you a quick question? A real quick? I
yes.
saw. Yeah, this is a question of Chloe. I saw that you were doing research on permaculture and eco-villages. Is there a way I could have access to some of that?
Research on permaculture. What exactly do you mean?
I just saw it in one of the meetings that you had with the Next Gen, and you mentioned in there that you were doing research on, I guess, some kind of, I'm not sure the exact words, but it had to do with permaculture and intentional communities.
Oops.
Or I can get it. I'll write you an email or something later.
Oh, sorry. I missed something up here. I don't know how to go.
Both of your guys. Short form is for any video conference, you can't have two devices on the audio at the same time in the same space, even if one is muted.
Let's see.
Let's try to do it just with this. It makes life a little less complicated. Yeah, Rains is definitely the master with this stuff. I should have asked his advice beforehand. Okay, so sorry, Jack. You're referring back to our website?
I talked to you, didn't I?
A talk that I've done in the past. Which was the specific talk? Oh, we're not. Can you hear us? Can anyone hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good.
So thank
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, Jack, I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but maybe we can leave it for the questions portion. So we can more this call, but I'm definitely willing to answer the questions you have about it.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, so we're gonna start.
So let's start by telling you guys we're really pleased to have you all on that call. It's really nice. Thanks, Alexis, to make the time to be on that call. It's really amazing to have a specialist with us. WSN, so the whole system network specialist that is on the site. So to give you a little background, System Network is a nonprofit organization that we have at the beginning of the year. It's envisioned to give access for to resource on permaculture, also how to create an eco livelihood. It's because we've been traveling quite a lot, and we've been also collaborate with the GEN, so the Global Eco Village Network. So visiting different eco villages, being in touch with different permaculture organization as well, make us realize how sometimes difficult it is to create an awesome project, but to be also able to sustain the project in all its, so socially, economically, spiritually as well. So with that, we've been inspired to say like, hey, why not we the few community that actually have been able to create like a cradle where people could grow, but in every aspect of it. So really, All System Network wanted to give people access to those resources and also give some training along the way. So that's what we are offering. So I would suggest that now. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for being with us. We're just starting. So we did a small introduction of what All System Network is. And now I will invite everyone to maybe do a round, not too long, just to introduce yourself, say where you're from, and why are you on that call today? So let's start with you, Jack.
All right. Well, I'm in Tucson, Arizona, and what I'm to figure out how we get movement, the worldwide movement for a better world, organized enough to actually have some real impact and be able to stand up to the powers that be. And I think the reason I'm here, I don't think the reason I'm here, it is the reason I'm here, is that I think that intentional communities and eco villages and the people involved are a very, very, or could be a very big part of that.
Great.
Did that come through?
Yes,
Yes.
it's a little echoey when there's other people are unmuted, so I just muted Alexis. I'm not sure. There we go. Okay, great. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So Eric, can you tell us why you're here? Eric?
Ari? I think maybe they're just listening.
I think Ari is muted, isn't he?
I think so.
I think they're left.
Okay, well, let's go with you. Rain, are you able to talk a little bit about you? On your bike?
Yeah, it's quite enough road. Hi, Rains Cohen, co-housing coach and Eco Village ambassador, here to learn more about how to help the movement better understand itself and weave together the different pieces, all about living in sustainable community, however we shape it.
Thanks for adding action.
And we are at the just beginning. So would you just introduce yourself,
David.
David?
David's muted. Wait.
Hi,
Okay.
I'm David, calling from Maui, Hawaii, and I'm interested in eco villages and also, especially at some point, offering a retreat in rewilding and skills of survivalism. Happy to be here.
Thanks for jumping on. And you said it was kind of hard to hear us otherwise, huh? On the live stream?
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
So, okay. So would you like Chris to start in introducing a little bit about who you are and what you're doing? Oh, we can't hear you. Can you
Unmute someone else. Who you're asking, Chris?
Chris, can you? Oh,
Is that better? Am I unmuted now?
yes, thank you.
There we go. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Just
My name is.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Can you do just a brief introduction, and we'll go back maybe to go deeper into what you're doing?
Sure. So my name is Chris Hyde. I am an owner of Natureversity Outdoor School. Basically, it's an outdoor school that focuses on primitive skills and sustainable practices, but it's really doing it through the lens of just nature. So we drag kids out in adventures. We drag adults out in adventures. We give them opportunities and challenges to just grow and prepare themselves mentally, physically, in all different ways, while simultaneously getting them to find empathy within themselves for living land bases around us. So check out Natureversity Outdoor School. That's us. And yeah, we're located in Austin, Texas. And my background is just outdoor survival, growing up being a nerd for nature and studying nature and inspiring people to get closer to the earth. And yeah, that's it. So.
Thank you, Chris. Alexis, do you want to do an introduction about yourself?
Yes. So I live at Living Energy Farm. We're part of the cluster of communities in Louisa, Virginia. Our focus is to build a community that operates without fossil fuel on a daily basis, at least, and does so at a very modest cost, so it can be taken around the world. I've done quite a bit of writing and organizing, and have been saying for years, and I believe it's very true, as I believe other people have mentioned, that community is the fundamental technology that makes renewable energy work. We give tours to people, and I've said that to thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people at this point, if you count radio and whatnot. And, you know, even something as simple as hot water, you know, a hot water system for one person costs a fortune. For 10 or 20 people, the per capita cost plummets. And the same is true for any renewable energy system. So really, cooperation is what makes renewable energy work. But Americans want their own houses and their own cars, and that's the struggle we're in. And now with the COVID-19 and the polarization of wealth and the things we're facing now, it's all the more important that we put forward viable solutions that really work. And it's based on cooperation and cooperative use of resources, ultimately.
Yeah. Mary, would you like to share with us who you are and why you're here?
Hello, hello. My name is Stefan. I am here because Yeah, I'm in Canada right now, so I'm in Northern America zones. I got kind of stuck here in the COVID times. We have a project down in Colombia. My reception is not the best. I am in nature. Maybe I turn off my video to have a better voice. But this Google Meet, I never used the Google Meet, and the quality is not so good as Zoom. I think Zoom is better. However, I just wanted to connect to the network of North America and want to see what this call is about. And yeah, I'm living in Colombia in the last 2 years, and we have a 33-hectare community there where we plant trees and have fresh waters and learn to build with bamboo, and it's connected with casa. And I was down there in the meetings of permaculture in the last 2 years, 3 years, and it's just really beautiful how to see the world grow together. And so I wanted to connect and see what this network is about. Hello, hello.
Great news. We are actually All System Network. Well, Chloe and we are planning to go eventually on a trip for Central America and Southern America to also connect with CASA. So that's awesome. Nice to have you here.
Great. Let's jump in.
Yay.
Sorry with the there's been a few different technical difficulties here, but still really honored to have both Alexis and Chris be on, and met and worked in different capacities already pre-Whole Systems Network. So we're trying to form more and more of a bond and networking connection with both of you. So it's really appreciative. So we have some questions about resilience and preparedness, and although I think there's some of a similar mindset that you both bring to the table, you're doing quite different things. And so I'm curious, starting with Alexis, what does preparedness mean to you on an individual level, and what does it mean as you go more communal, because you've lived in community for a long time and you're building your own, and you're on that spectrum there. It's still muted, by the way.
Who are you wanting to respond to that? You want me to respond to that? Okay, sure. So interestingly, preparedness overlaps quite a lot with living lightly on the earth and living equitably. And for us, I mean, we're largely food self-sufficient. Mechanically, you know, I think some people think that the more simply you live, the more sustainably you live, and it's a bit of a deception, because you can live with candles and firewood, and but that's not really, for the populations that we have, that's not really the most sustainable way to live. The most sustainable way to live is to come up with good designs of how people grow their food, how they support each other, how you can reduce your mechanical needs and meet those mechanical needs by whatever means in the simplest fashion. I mean, we can't run around in the forest and live off of deer and acorns anymore. There's too many people for that. But as a society, we tend to discount the whole mechanical side of things. We think if we have good ideas, it almost doesn't matter what machines we have. So, you know, a living energy farm, if the world evaporated completely, I mean, even with this COVID-19 thing, we simply just said, okay, we're going to quarantine. So we already have most of our own homegrown food. We have our own water. We're not completely energy self-sufficient. We are at a residential level. And I think at some point we will build, the whole farm will be, you know, and picking the exact right technological level, that's a complicated question. But in my mind, you know, there's all these questions about, you know, the polarization of wealth and the extinction of species and climate change, and, you know, self-sufficiency and now pandemics. To me, they all point in the same direction: self-determined communities. The ideal world for me are groups of people living together, supporting each other. So, we can reduce our mechanical needs, simplify our machines. Maybe all the communities won't be the same, but we really have to cooperate. So the fact that all of those things point in the same direction simply reinforces my conviction that that's what we have to do. And at the core of it is a spiritual respect for the earth we live on. And that spiritual respect needs to be grounded in the material world. So, at Living Energy Farm, we grow most of our own food. We have a long-term food supply. That is the most sustainable way to live. We use very little energy, of course, compared to other people. Our residential energy needs day to day we're completely self-sufficient in that regard. We're still importing some energy for the farm. I really wish that, because there's a lot of activists out there who want to react to things, and that's fine, and that has its purpose, but we really need a long-term plan, and I'm perpetually bewildered at the desire to do anything but make a long-term plan. It's a protest, and all of these short-term approaches seem to have so much more glamour than just sitting down and it's like, okay, well, how do we do this? Think about it, 5 years, 10 years out into the future. How can we reduce our dependence on these big evil corporations? How do we support each other better? How do we, what tools do we really need? How do you just come up with a good water pump? I mean, we all need water. And you can just ignore that and pretend that protesting in the street is more important. The water pump's more important. That's going to have more to do with how our children live. So those are the questions that I think about. And somebody else mentioned, hoping to see this movement grow. I certainly do. And with COVID-19, there's the escalation of poor people, of people in need, is going to be very rapid. It is very rapid. So I'm hoping we can get out and try to wean people away from their corporate product addictions towards community self-sufficiency. So that's my general thinking on the subject, at least.
Yeah, I think that you definitely have a lot to bring to the table as far as like materializing already what's going on. So I think even just the questions you're asking, if other people can take that and ask themselves those same questions and really thinking about that on the long-term scale and also thinking about doing it with a group of people, that's what I'm hearing is key. And it reminds me, one of my first conversations with you many, many years ago. I'm sure you don't even remember meeting me at that point, but I was obsessed with earthships. I still am. And you said, you can't live in an earthship by yourself. It's not going to work that way. So I'm reminded by that now. So thanks for, I found one other person that will join me.
The more the merrier.
Yeah, right? Okay. Chris, Alexis, I'm going to meet you again. Oh, you're there. Okay, great. You're ahead of me. Chris, what do you think about preparedness, and where are you at with it on an individual level and a community level? You're still muted. I can't unmute you, but if you go to the bottom there, you can hover over the mute and unmute.
There we go. Great. Okay, wonderful. So individually, I guess I'm coming at it from an animalistic perspective, not really a human perspective. So my take on it is from sunrise to sunset, we're in survival, right? That's my idea. So the idea behind that is just to be prepared always. So if you're planning doing anything before you make a move, where are you going? What are you going to do there? When do you plan on being home? Like, those are all things that I think about when the everyday average backpacker or camper goes backpacking. But we don't really do that, in the context of everyday life. And I think, even if you're going to go drop something off, and you don't know exactly what part of town that is or what it's like over there, it's all the same. Just do some basic research, I would say, before going anywhere or doing anything. Find out what you're going to encounter. An individual perspective, again, coming from a survival background, I look at it like very rudimentary needs. At the very base of, like, let's say a triangle, I think would be what I would say the 4 A's, right? That'd be the attitude, awareness, accountability, adaptability, right? Starting off on a good foundation with those types of things would be best. From there, sleep, oxygen, water, clothing, shelter, food, sanitation, first aid, lighting, communication, and then probably transportation there at the very top. So I kind of look at that triangle and then I go, okay, how do I assess those needs, right? Like, do I really need to travel right now? Like, no, probably not. So, flick that off the top. What's the next one? You just kind of work around those basic needs. And then I think to extrapolate that to a communal level, you just do the exact same thing. You look at those exact same rudimentary needs, and then you say, okay, well, now there's more of us. How do we, in turn, increase production for water, food, shelter, however it may be. But I think in the bigger picture, communally, for me, I think as like a solo survival guy who can just grab a bag and run out to the woods and be okay, I think I'm more worried about those people who I might be joining. So I think the preparedness for me on a communal level is really the mental and the emotional, right? Like really getting to know that community, because being thrown in a survival situation in and of itself is so mentally exhausting. Now, if there's somebody who's real worried about like, oh, my car or my bank or whatever, and they're just like totally giving up on life because, whatever, you're now kind of in this mode of, well, I am empathetic to their situation and I want to help them. But, you could have avoided that by getting to know them a little bit better. Again, the kind of planning thing. So physically, material possessions, like what kind of things you're going to be missing, I think will be important to talk about. Hazard scenarios, things you're going to face out there, all of that type of stuff. And finally, like the last part that I don't think too many people think about, but I think should be talked about in a group communal dynamic is there's a lot of people with a lot of spiritual beliefs, and just trying to mash everybody together, like there might be, certain friction there. So I think just taking apart the dynamic of a unit and looking at every last piece is the best way to just proceed first. And in that regard, but that's like very rudimentary preparedness type stuff. I always tell people, write down the things that you touch on a daily basis, and then ask yourself, what are those things? If I lost these things, like what would I actually die from? And then just start getting rid of things around the house. That's what I do, right? So for me, like right here, I've got a backpack, right? And in this backpack, there's 5 things. There's a tarp, there's a blanket, there's a knife, there's a water bottle, and there's a fire starting tool and some rope, right? And that's it. And with that pack, I feel like I could pretty much go and live indefinitely. Maybe not like frozen tundras, but so I think think small, but obviously be prepared in all aspects. So that's what I would say to the individual / communal thing.
I'm curious, the part that stuck out for me, just because I'm really in the social sustainability realm, is like you said, to take apart those beliefs about people or like that, like working together. I guess maybe if you were to lead a group into the wilderness, you would more tell them like, well, keep thinking about what it is that you're touching and what you're bringing with you and how you're alive rather than your beliefs. But what about if they do start having conflicts around that?
I think I just did a little YouTube video the other day about a group of boys who were from Tonga, and they crash landed. It was 6 teenage boys, and they wanted to get away from this school that was treating them poorly, and they just kind of Lord of the Flies them up on this island accidentally, right? And I think one of the most important things that I walked away from with that story was one of their commitments was, we're not going to fight. Right? Like, so first off, I think if a group of teenage boys on an island can commit to that, shame on you for being an adult if you can't commit to that with other adults in a temporary situation until you get yourself out of there. And then that's what they did. So for 15 months, these boys worked together. What's remarkable is one of them even broke a leg and had to have all of his duties and chores picked up by the other group of boys. So it just goes to show, like, we can sacrifice things like that. So we can make little cuts to the corner. You said something about just this group dynamic. In my opinion, I think it would be the commitment to resolution would be very important. But also, as far as a group dynamic, I think you're going to want to have people who are capable in a lot of different areas. So if you're one of those people who are listening to this right now and you're like, where do I get started? I think the question to ask yourself is, what can I learn that can be applied to a lot of different things. Because for instance, again, when I look at this backpack, I look at this knife around my neck. This knife around my neck can do a lot of things. It's not just one tool. And so I think learn a skill that can be applied to a lot of different situations would be where to get started with.
Thank you. That's permaculture 101 too for me.
There you go, right? It all goes back around, right? And that's the idea.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to mute you again and bring you back to Alexis. Alexis, another one of the questions, and something that I've kind of studied the past, 10 years I've been studying community, and that is, what is the difference between immediate crisis and long-term crisis, right? So when we're looking at like immediate crisis, it's like disaster, a health pandemic and you didn't see it coming, or a fire in your home or community. And I'm curious because I kind of feel like as a survival person, like Chris has that perspective of the more immediate, and I'm assuming, Alexis, that you might be looking at that more long-term, because that's basically what you were saying. So I'm curious what your preparedness looks like on a more immediate versus a more long-term, like climate change and different more long-term crisis.
Well, I mean, for us, if industrial civilization collapsed, we would be in pretty good shape for at least a few decades. I mean, having a bug-out bag and being able to run out into the forest, I wouldn't want to disparage it, but, there are 8 billion people on the planet. That's, what are we talking about? So the long-term question is, where do your food come from? Where does your water come from? Shelter is actually one of the easier ones. You cannot, I mean, I'm in Virginia, but there's very few places on the planet where any number of people could wander out into the forest and find any reasonable amount of food year-round. The whole as human beings, we don't eat leaves off the trees. We grow food. We plan in advance for food. So, I do like the point about the first commitment being that we're not going to fight. That's great. Yeah, I wish we could get more people to hone in on that one. But yeah, so a long-term plan. The surprising thing for me with Living Energy Farm, I mean, we are largely energy self-sufficient and food self-sufficient. And there have been tremendous surprises. The biggest surprise is not how difficult it is, but how easy it is. If you can let go of this middle class belief that you have to have your own private house and your own private car and your own private refrigerator, and simply ask the question, okay, well, how do I meet my basic needs? And I need to stay warm in the winter if it's cold. I need water to drink. I need food. I mean, there's so many people doing so many things out there, so many workshops, sustainable, whatever, and their food, they're still buying all their food from corporate America. Well, most of my food I'm growing in the field, right out in the yard, right there, and have a group of people with me to help me plant it and harvest it. And that's not pretend self-sufficiency. That's the real thing. And it's been surprisingly easy, particularly the residential side of it. We developed what we call a DC microgrid. So, to power computers and lights and to grind grain. We have a whole metal shop now. I've become something of an inventor because we can't really buy the tools that we need. So like a good grain harvester, that's one that I've gotten really excited about lately. That's one I've been working on for years. So I've got a grain harvester that's the size of, it's built into a 55-gallon drum. And I think it's going to work. And, it doesn't have the romance of we're going to bug out and go survive a catastrophe, but it actually has a lot more to do with the real world. Howard Kunstler in the peak oil business, he called it the long emergency. This is not a short emergency. I mean, I gave a book tour back in 2008. I called it the Constructive Panic Book Tour. And Greta Thunberg, the close of her TED speech was, I don't want you to hope, I want you to panic. Well, that panic needs to be a sustained panic, an ongoing. Where is your food coming from? What did you eat today? Where did it come from? You didn't go out and knife a squirrel in the yard, did you? No, it was grain. It was grain grown by Syngenta and Monsanto and these big corporations. Even if it's organic, that's where it's coming from. So, let's get real about this. Where's your food coming from? Where's your water coming from? It's a class bias that we think that our ideas and what goes on in our head and our education and our papers is all what's important. And the machines and the food and the house and the things we do with our hands don't matter. And it's really kind of a shame because basically we're happy slaves at this point. We can pretend to be self-sufficient and pretend to be liberal and pretend to be whatever we want to pretend to be, while we are still utterly and completely dependent. Every calorie that you eat, most of those calories are coming from big corporate sources. Every drop of water you drink is coming through a piece of pipe made by a big corporate source, through a pump made by a big corporate source. They've got us fully enslaved, and they know that. You know, we're happy slaves for now, but what's going to happen is the number of unhappy slaves is going to grow. I mean, even right now with the COVID crisis, more people are going to die from starvation because of the economic fallout than from the disease itself. That's pretty clear. There's going to be tremendous, basically, I mean, I don't want to go off on a cynical deep end, but we're looking at the beginning of the end of industrial expansion. I mean, we all know that that collapse, that big evil word is out there somewhere. Well, this is it. This is exactly what it looks like. It looks like the number of poor people growing. And there's going to be tremendous political unrest in response to that. We have to get relevant. We have to stop pretending that this is, you know, a game, or it's not a protest, okay? This is 8 billion people on the planet. There are billions of people out there who need better solutions. And I'm tremendously frustrated that our environmental leadership in the United States is still hung up on electric cars and grid-tie solar and grass-fed beef and all this craziness that doesn't have anything to do with sustainable communities. But those of us who are in the sustainable communities movement, this is the real solution. It's not as glamorous. We need to figure out how to make it glamorous. God knows we've been making a lot of videos lately and just trying to put the message out there. But every time I talk to people, even my best friends, when I'm talking to people who live outside a community, they always make these funny little remarks about, you know, oh, well, gosh, I guess when the world collapses, everybody will come do what you do, or when it all gets all messed up, then what you have will look good. Well, it's like, come on, dude, it looks good now. I mean, what does a human being need that I don't have? I get to take a hot shower, the building stays warm, I'm largely energy self-sufficient. The difference is class status. You know, I look like a working class dude. You know, communities don't have that prestige of the private house, the private car, all of that thing. And that's what, you know, so many people have been sold to want. Well, this is our opportunity. This is the beginning of the collapse. Basically, there's a question now whether or not the industrial powers are going to be willing to cough up the money and the resources to pull out the, you know, billion or so extra people who've just got shoved into poverty. Well, they're not going to do it. They're going to let them starve. So the escalation of polarization that we're seeing is going to get noticeably more dramatic in the next couple of years. We need to get out there and try to figure out how to make our movement more relevant.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Alexis. I guess also what I'm hearing from that is, and that's something a little bit that we've taught about before as well, is prevention. When you're thinking about even short-term or long-term crisis, you're thinking about preventive measures. What you're doing now will prevent maybe that and kind of cushion that blow of what might happen on a societal level, or even if there's something of a more immediate crisis like a power shortage or whatever. And that's, for me, decentralization, that's what that means to me. But also what I'm hearing from both of you is grounding yourself into now rather than being on technology, always being on the computer. And, you know, all of us are guilty to that to some degree. But what I'm saying is what both of you have been saying is, what are we doing with our hands? What are we doing in our physical reality now? And what are we able to, like, what are we depending on and how are we sourcing that? So even though you're still both talking in opposite spectrums, I'm still hearing a little bit of that same similarity of like, okay, what do we do now in order to keep ourselves prepared? Is it a skill set? Both of you are talking about skill sets, very different ones, but still very important ones. So I'm going to ask you, Chris, a similar question as far as where do you see the difference between long-term crisis and short-term, and how do you prepare? And then I'm going to open up the floor to people either watching on the live stream or people that are sitting here with us.
All right. Sorry, I had to unmute. So difference for me in between the immediate crisis and a long-term crisis, I think, from my understanding and my perspective and my education, it's 72 hours, you know, is kind of like immediate. So 3 days up to 3 weeks, I think would be immediate. And then anything over 3 weeks, you know, to 3 months and longer, that's what I would classify as a long-term crisis. And yeah, I think, again, it just goes back to the mindset I was talking about earlier, is first having that mindset of, you know, everything. I mean, there's people out there right now who think they might die by a killer wasp from some other country. And like that's a real legit threat to them. But the realization is it's not a real legit threat. You know, they found one dead bug in Washington, and now the news media says they're everywhere, and people are panicking. And that's really strange to me. So I can't help but say, like, and I think Alexis and I are talking the same thing when we both say, like, education really is the answer. You know, like, no matter what you're doing right now, like, do something that educates yourself and educates your community, educates those around you, those you care about, to be doing things that you want to see happen in the world. So if you want clean water and clean air and all those pure eternal truths, like, work towards that stuff. Long-term stuff, I think, you know, study how to store food, right? How to grow food, how to prepare your house to make it like Alexis is doing, you know, sustainably. That's exactly, you know, I have written down right here, it says exactly that. It just says setting up your home to be able to self-regulate as best you can. So I would concur. I mean, that's our goal eventually, is to get out. We're on the very edge of Austin on slaughter right now. But our goal is to eventually do the same, get out away from everything, have a farm, few acres, grow food. But it's in the right now, you know, we're still, my goal is still to inspire as many kids as I can to love the earth and want to have a protection over it. Because I think a lot of the kids right now are just kind of stuck in video game land and they don't really care about nature. So that's my fight. You know, we always say, like, what's our fight? What's our fight? And I think Alexis has got a great point about, well, that's all well and good. You want to inspire kids, but what are you going to do when the pandemic really hits and there is no corporate food and water and all that? And he's absolutely right. So I'm thinking about both those things, the long term as well as the short term. And yeah, I'm not much of a huge prepper per se. I had a few supplies, you know, ready that were just always around, water and storage food and things like that. But it's a tough subject for me to sit and mull over, because I want to get into it too and talk about, well, what is it really? Who can I point this finger out and blame? It's like culture, right? It's like, we've created this culture that we've had. This is why we're all in this situation. But I'm not sure. I think just to touch on the long-term subject, some things for those who are watching and listening to this, some things to think about in regards to, like, how much stuff are you needing? There's some things to think about around climate and season, the location of where you're at. He mentioned he's in Virginia. I'm in Texas. Obviously, humidity and storage and dryness and all that has an effect. How many people are in your family? Do you have elderly and infants? How long do you think this emergency is going to last? These are all questions that I think people should ask themselves. What opportunities do you have to resupply? Any type of rationing of these resources that you're looking to do? Is having any type of community or neighborhood support group an option for you? And then finally, do you have the means to improvise your needs from the local landscape? And that's where I think the primitive skills and the survival really comes in, is if you're able to fashion those things. Like he said, you know, mentioned killing squirrels. Like, hell yeah, I kill squirrels. I'd snare them in my backyard. They run up this pole and they get snared, and I cook those suckers pretty often. So yeah, they're pretty tasty. You know, I've gotten to where I can skin one of those things in probably a minute. But it's practice now. I always tell my students, don't read the book, right? How to swim when the boat's sinking. And I think that's exactly what Alexis and I are both saying communally.
Yeah, I just want to say also, for me, what you're doing with the kids, it's a long-term preparedness. Like, the kids are the future. So that's really amazing. What you take this time to teach them, and to also, like, bring their awareness of what they can actually do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's also it. Like, we didn't want to talk to someone that's on a farm, and Alexis brought that up at the beginning, of like a prepper with the mindset of just one person doing it on their own. Like, one, I think that's scary just because you get in your head so much and you're already in that mentality of being like a cynic and skeptical of the world, but then you just keep getting further in that hole and building up and having that fortress around you, but no one to share it with. So for me, that's talking to like that mainstream prepper, and I don't see either of you doing that at all. And I see you more being intertwined with your local community in different ways, and of course that's defined differently for both of you. So there's that aspect, and then I just want to touch on what resilience really means and why we reached out to both of you, which is being able to be dynamic when there is a stress on your environment, whether it's a local or regional or worldwide. And so like, yeah, for me it is, and you brought that up too, education. When you value and you work towards learning more and more and doing that on an experiential level, the more you're able to bounce back, to be like, oh yeah, I know how to use that knife, or oh, I know how to make that DC system work out of what I pulled out of cash, you know. And like that is an amazing, from what you both do. I'm really in awe in teaching yourself those skills. So that's what I'm going to say for now. And I want to give some people the option. I know Stefan it seemed that he had something to say. I don't know if your internet is stable enough, but you're also, Stefan, welcome to put it in the chat. But feel free if you still have something. I know also David wants to share something about this. Oh, because, okay, Stefan, yes.
Yes, I'm listening quite attentive to the beautiful sharings of the brothers, and we were talking about immediate like shortages or dangers and long term. I mean, we are in a long term kind of crisis now for the last 50 years and forever, and it's not getting better. And for me, I traveled all over like Middle America, Central America, and South America, down to Ecuador and Peru. And my teacher of permaculture is Stephen Brooks, who lives in Costa Rica, and he designed, like, in the last 20 years, more than 5 huge projects. The biggest one now, 2,000 hectares in the end. Like, he goes up from like, and it's visions and dreams which are like trying to show examples of the new way how we can live and how we can design. And my kind of mission and passion is, I was visiting also a lot of ancestral communities, and they kind of live permaculture. They're like, oh, you want to do this again? Oh yeah, because that's how we all lived before, when we remember our also connection with the elements and go deeper into meditation. So what I see a very big key in this new time, actually right now, particularly right now, because we were like, we are apart, or we got disconnected from each other through the crisis, through Corona, through this threat, which is, for me, I'm in the nature, I'm with my, for me, in some level, there is no Corona. There is since a big time, we were building up this sickness of humanity, and now so many people are sick from bad food mostly, and now we have to call it somehow, you know? So we call it malaria, we call it since 20 years, and we call it different. And it's a pandemic. No, there is no pandemic. It's just there's so many want to like do something better. And our biggest like challenge is how can we organize better? How can we organize in the networking better? That's also why I'm on this call. I'm very amazed from Colombia, I say, for example, because I was part of the movement there for a while, and they are having very big conferences of permaculture, but there is not people coming, they work, like it's not in the city, and no, it's really conferences in the nature where they meet 300 different people, and they all come from farms where they all grow their own food, and they interchange how they organize, how they make the things with the volunteers, because the real like challenge is still coming, is like actually how we organize bigger communities, what is our way of governance, like. And I was looking quite a little bit deeper there, and this is kind of my specialty and mission is like social permaculture, and try to organize in closed systems with like a cosmogeogracia. It's like a competence anarchy. I don't know how to say it. It's very funny. I'm in studies of myself, of my reflection, and of beautiful things. And yeah, I have seen just to live with nature, like when nature is like the community, when you take care of the plants and like just the trees. For me, food forest is very big solution for food foresting, like a lot of your crops, so you don't need to plant all your annual food. So really work with the land and go back to the land and learn how can we design bigger lands again, as our grandparents were farming them and our ancestors. Like before we got too many and we're going to cities. So
with the global eco village network in Casa. Is that what you're saying? These are these gatherings you were going to, or in Casa with Casa?
they were from Casa, but they were also from club. Like it was the whole. It was based on Casa, but younger people, and they made a conference from whole Latino America. So there were people from Ecuador and from from all South America. We were more than 400 people with Hare Krishnas, and we're already dancing the new abundance of life because they already connected. They are like already doing it. They already loving it. So I also want to inspire actually the northern networks to look deeper into the south, because they already found a lot of solutions. They also still have a lot of good elders in their networks who know the way how to make offerings for the lands, and like it's really beautiful to experience this from South America.
Really great, and people that are tuning in, I'd love for them also to see more of what's happening there. So I'm going to shift to if other people have questions. Thank you so much for your share. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice.
David, did you have something to say? Oh, I think he's frozen right now. Jack. Oh, David. Great.
I'm actually just gonna very shortly say goodbye, because actually my data is not very stable here, and I have limited data because I'm in the river in Canada right now. First warm weekend in Canada. Yoo-hoo! So have a great call, guys, and so much love, and we will keep in touch. Thank you for your sharings.
Jack, did you have something to contribute?
Yeah, I do. Like what the other folks that were talking about is really good stuff, that we have to learn how to be self-sufficient. We have to be able to work with our hands and figure out how we're going to create how to live if we need to. I guess what I've been working on the hardest is that, I've been an activist for 40 years, and I have probably a better idea than most what's going on in terms of what the powers that be are trying to do and where they're going. Like the 2008 problem, that was totally orchestrated from beginning to end, and that just got them richer. Whether or not they started the Corona thing, I'm not claiming they did, and I have no idea really, but I wouldn't put it past them, of course. But they definitely are taking advantage of that. They're getting a lot more wealthy. The poor are getting poorer. They really want to take over and take control. And no matter how good we are at how we can build and grow food and various things, if the movement that wants to actually create a better world, really wants to manifest that better world, and even live halfway decently themselves, I think we have to get very, very well organized, coordinated, and collaborative. And I don't mean just a few of us here and there. I mean the movement as a whole, across this country and across the world as well. What I can't understand is that so many of these people that are involved in these communities and trying to put things together and live better and do all these good things we're talking about, I just don't understand that not more of us really recognize the need for us to get very well, like I say, organized, coordinated, and collaborative to the point where we actually can have impact on what's going on the planet, where we can actually stand up to the powers that be and not let them get away with what they're doing. And I don't want to be an alarmist, but they don't care whether we live or die, like somebody else was pointed out. And if we want a decent life, I think, there's a good chance they're going to take it away because they already are doing that. And I think that's obvious. So anyway, bottom line for me is, how do we get the movement as a whole, or in very large part, sufficiently organized and collaborative to stand up to these people and create the paradise that actually is possible, would be possible on Earth if there wasn't a relative handful of people getting in the way. Okay, I guess I'm done.
Thank you, Jack. And I'm sure that with your 40 years of activism, you probably have found more answers as Alexis and Chris and your own specific answers. I appreciate that. And I remember you at one of the Jenna convergences. So I just want to bring that here. But I also have, we are highlighting Alexis and Chris here. I'm curious if either of them have a response as far as your question is concerned.
Cool. A response to any question?
About how to step up to the powers that be around Jack.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, let's just take, for example, let's cut all the nonsense out of Waco, right? Let's say that those were just farmers, just doing their thing, slowly alleviating themselves from the grid. Like, I see more and more people attempting to do that, and more problems are coming their way.
Watch this series.
Yeah. And yeah, I did. I watched that on Netflix. It was really good. But again, let's say you watch it. I mean, let's say you go and you find a compound and you get 20, 30 people to plant a garden and, raise, goats and do that all, and you slowly detach yourself. I think you're just going to, you're showing the world that it can be done, and they do not want that. I really don't think that they want that, So standing up to the powers to be, oh damn, what a topic, how do you do that? I think, but that's step one, is obtaining said site or land to allow yourself to set up such an infrastructure to make sustainability for your life happen. I think that's step one. But in and of itself, you got to get land permits and all these different things. I mean, it's a weird world. I mean, and we all know what we're up against. I have no idea how to begin to tackle that, other than inspiring people to start getting away from it, but here I am sitting on an iPhone. So I feel weird.
Yeah. Question. I don't know if anyone has that answer, but I think we're in the movement of finding that. I know David's been chiming in on chat, so I just want to give you a chance to say something. And yeah. Oh, you're still frozen. And unmute.
Yeah, I started something called Fruit Not Money, and our part of our purpose is to plant fruit trees globally in people's backyards and community organic food forests, so that
David, if you
fruit can survive.
if you turn off your video and you leave your mic on, we would be able to hear you better. It's really choppy right now.
Oh, okay. Okay, so is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, part of my purpose is to help people get off the fossil fuels, and one way to do that is to lower our carbon impact where we are living currently. A lot of people, a lot of young millennials, a lot of young people are moving out of the cities and going into the rural or suburbs. And this is an opportunity to retrofit and regreen the suburbs, planting community food, vegan, organic food forests. So if any farmers go out of business, we still have food in our backyards, in our neighborhoods, we can share. And also bicycling, promoting bicycling and hitchhiking more, so that people can lower their carbon impact.
David, are you still speaking? Because it's still pretty choppy there. Okay.
No.
Awesome. Thank you. And yes, David put his in the chat about fruit not money as well. People are interested in that. When I hear things like that, I feel like one of the things that I teach in permaculture classes is that there's always this spectrum, right? And we're talking about this spectrum right now with just the people that we have on here, as far as where do you find where you're at in this movement. And let's say the movement is moving into a new system and new society, and finding new ways to work. And when I hear those things, it's like, okay, Alexis, I'm hearing, is on this way of like, he is living the new world. He is doing it. He's setting the model for other people to learn. And then Chris, I would see somewhere on the middle to the new world, where he's like, yes, let's teach kids how to do it now. We're in the now and we're doing it. And has Alexis started this conversation is the activist mentality. And that's a little bit I'm hearing where David's coming from. And those people are more on like the old world, like trying to like fight, maybe not necessarily fight, but show like what is happening there and say like those things need to stop, and then bringing all of that, looking at the new world. And that was my issue. I worked with Greenpeace as an activist for a little while, and I thought that was the way to change the world. But the thing with Greenpeace is that they weren't looking at the new world. They were just saying no. They weren't starting new things. So, and I'm not saying David's doing it at all. I think he's doing the activist in the right way, where he's looking at this end goal, this world that we want to see, and also being like, okay, well, this is also what needs to stop now, and what do we shift in our spaces. So yeah, I just want to bring that awareness of the spectrum. I think we're getting close to time here. So Alexis, do you have anything else to add as far as this conversation and what other people have been bringing to the table?
Well, I think we have the misfortune of living in interesting times. There's a tremendous opening, I think, at this point, and we don't want to be too cynical. I mean, I know I'm aware of, I've been tear gassed, and I'm aware of the repressive forces that are out there, but they've got their hands pretty full too. There's a tremendous opening at this point. There's going to be a lot of suffering. There already is. But in the next few years, a lot of people are going to be pushed into poverty in the United States and globally. They're going to be looking for better answers. We can't focus on, what some big powerful somebody might do to us, maybe, whatever. There's a huge opening right now for us to get out there and offer better answers. And, maybe for me, maybe I'm better at working with machines than I am at inspiring people. Or maybe, I've always said that it's simply the intoxication of, industrialism can provide so much crappy food and whatever titillation that people want. But now's the time. Now's the time to do it. The youth movement is huge. The student strike, and there's all these organizations. It's true across history. If you've been at the activist thing for a while, you know that when the radicals get out there, the liberals try to always jump in front of them. It's like we come along and say, we want a fundamental change to the core of society. And all these people who want to just protect the resale value of their house try to jump in front of us and say, yeah, that's what we want too. Come join this organization, that organization. But times are changing. I mean, this is we're at a fundamental transition point in history. And I don't know how to put the messaging together to inspire people. I certainly haven't found that yet, but we're looking for it. And we need to work together through whatever means to find that messaging, because people out there need it. They need us. They need what we're doing.
Yes, 1,000,000%. I love what Alexis is doing, and I hope that more people are exposed to what he's doing. As far as one of the things he's doing as we're closing out here is making a box that is DC powered, and he can just drop it in the desert, or has been dropping it, and people are able, indigenous people, I think in Arizona, right? Jack, that's where you are, but Alexis, that's where some of these people are, right? And they're
we took them out to Arizona.
You were just
to the Navajo reservation, and we did it just before COVID hit. And sadly, now the Navajo have the highest per capita COVID infection of any group in the country, which is horrible. But yet, that's good equipment. This is exactly what I'm talking about, the difference between imagining we can do this with candles and firewood and living out in the forest. Nickel iron batteries, I don't want to go off on that. But we're putting together solar equipment that can last the rest of your life. You don't have to buy consumer junk. Now, in the long run, we want to be able to set up communities to make that equipment from scratch. That can be done. But anyway, we should close out here and not drag.
I know, that could be another long term. Jack, yes, one last thing and we'll close out.
The main focus, what I would make as the main focus, is we have to put together an alternative economic system. And I think Alexis has some really good ideas along those lines. It does not have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be that difficult. Like he was saying, there's only a few things we need: air, water, food, and maybe some, anyway, I don't want to take any more time, but you understand what I'm getting at. We can create a powerful alternative economic system. We would just get all the people that are into building this better world organized and collaborative. All right, thank you for giving me that time.
I'm on mute. I would just bring out that it's really inspiring having you both here, and Jack and David as well. And I think also what would be really nice to see happen in the future is see more and more people aware of their own responsibility to share that information, because I mean that everything needs to go out. And everybody needs to learn how to do those things and to collaborate. But at the same time, when you live in a community, and you have work for all your life, I've been spending my almost 30 years in a community. I know what it is. It's hard work. It's a lot. And when there's a pandemic happening like that in your life, what you'll do you will like keep the resource for your people that have been working in that community. So that's why it's so important to spread out the message out there so many people could have access to it. It's not only like people living in community could survive, but many more. So yes, I think like education, sharing message, and sharing that knowledge would be so important. So thank you for being here. Thanks.
Yes, thanks for everyone's insight. I'm sure like this could be a sparked conversation. I know I still want to contribute, but I know we're 15 over time, and yeah, I'm really appreciative. And Chris, thanks for jumping on, even though the hour difference threw us off. But yes, thank you, and David too, from Hawaii, and everyone else. So
Thank
you
you
so much.
Be well, everyone.
Thank y'all. Have a great evening. Nice meeting y'all.
Good meeting you folks.
Take care.
How do I turn it up?